Kitty of the Hobart Dolls Hospital. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also feel free to get in touch. There might be something you'd like us to show you how to do, be it dolls, toys, ornaments, teddy bears. Let us know. Free to ask. Today I'm going to repair this lovely statue of the risen Christ, and he's lost the hand. The hand's broken off, and we need to look at repairing that and making the repair as invisible as possible. Now, to do this, I'll be using some ultra clear epoxy adhesive. It's actually a lovely resin to work with. When you're working with white or very light colours, be careful what types of resins or epoxies that you use, because some of them, when you mix them together, they have a slight yellow hue. Really, the ultra clear, I don't think is ultra clear, but it is very clear. You can actually get other glues for repairing glass, and they are crystal clear. But this will be good to use for this purpose. Also, I'll be using the little plastic lids off the milk bottles. These are very handy for mixing in. Icy pole stick to mix the resin together. I'll be using a needle to apply the resin. These are very good to use, particularly the ones that have got the little ball on the end, because you can sort of manipulate it between your fingers to get the resin in just the right places. And because I'm working with a white statue, even if you get that hand on really, really firmly, there may still be some little areas where tiny little microchips have come away from the break. So it's a good idea to colour your resin, the colour to match the ornament that you're repairing. So I'm going to put a little bit of acrylic paint in the resin, just the tiniest amount. And that will help camouflage any little chips or any areas where that break doesn't fit firmly and tightly together. So what we need to do is, first of all, to see, are there any bits missing? And do we need to also look at filling it with something else? So very carefully, but you need to be careful you're not grinding the hand together, because then you're creating more damage. Just place it together and just see how nicely that fits. Just look around it, and that actually looks as though there aren't any major chips, just the tiniest chips. That's going to fit together nicely. If there were any major chips, you can get a very white, almost porcelain looking filler called milliput, and that is very, very good for working with these kinds of ornaments if you've got to fill any holes. So I will now get some of this resin, and I need to remove the end. So the only problem with using this syringe type is that you're mixing two agents together that are then going to start setting immediately. So usually if you're going to colour something, it's far better if you're using resin that is in two separate tubes. So you can place some in there, add the colour, mix it together, then add the setting agent to it and mix it again, and then it will start setting. But we'll see how we go with this. We just have to work quickly. So put a little bit in here. A little bit of white. Don't need much, just enough to stop it from looking crystal clear. Mix it up. The good thing about these tops is once you've used them, you can scrape out the hard bits and reuse it. So you're using something over and over, and that's really nice to be able to do. And now I use the needle, scrape a little bit off onto the needle. You don't want it going too far and squelching over the edges of the arm. So we're just going to just put a little bit on, like that. And now we put the arm in place. And you've got to be very, very careful that they all match up. Any little bits of glue that come out from the join, you can wipe them away. Might have to fiddle a little bit. I'm going to stand him up. Apply a bit of pressure. Just get it into place like so. If you run your fingernail over the top, you'll actually feel if there's any ridges, if the hand's not perfectly in alignment with the wrist. So just run your fingers over it. Now at this point, you could put a piece of tape around the item. Another technique is have a container and put sand in it. And as long as you don't get sand on the repair, and then you can position the item at the angle as in such a way that the repair will sort of balance in position, and then you can just leave it in the sand for as long as you need. The setting time for this particular glue is 5 minutes, but it actually takes, I think, probably about 8 hours to reach its full strength. Don't pile on the glue either. The old saying, less is more. If you use too much, the strength doesn't always seem to be quite as good. It's more likely to the bits of glue are more likely to squelch out around the edges and create an imperfect repair. Can be a bit fiddly, but it's worth fiddling, because the more aligned it is, the more perfectly aligned each side of that repair is to each other, the less visible the repair shall be. And I'm just wiping some of that white resin where it's been coloured white, and I'm just wiping it with my fingers, and that's going to just make it that little bit less visible. It tones in the repair with the rest of the statue. Like I said, when you do colour the resin, you don't need very much colour to it. A little bit of pressure on the hand. As you fiddle, as you push and prod very gently, the repair will find its position. It will gradually settle back into the way it would have been prior to the damage. The resin's getting harder and harder now. And so now I'm just going to sit it like this. I'll put something behind the statue, perhaps this piece of foam. Maybe even this. I like using bits of things instead of throwing them out, making use of them. Okay. So we'll let that sit now for a little while, and then we'll come back to it and see how it is. Okay, so I've left the statue sitting here, supported by little bits and pieces, so that the weight of the hand pushes down onto the arm as it's setting. I can now stand the statue up. And I'll just check where the hand has been glued. If there's any little bits of overflowed resin and resin that's come out from the edges, you can just sort of very, very gently scrape it back. If you use a sharp tool, it's important that you only do it very, very gently, because you don't want to actually be scraping away the surface of the item itself, just bits of the glue. And if you go to the join, there may be some little spots where the glue's just come out a little bit outside, and the glue is still fractionally soft. It's not totally cured. Again, I think it takes, like I said earlier, probably about 8 hours for it to completely cure, but the setting time is about 5 minutes. So it means there's still a certain amount of leeway to work on the repair and ensure that it's just less visible. Just going to scrape, just the knife's barely touching, because this is a sharp scalpel, so it's barely touching the item, so it's not going to cause any damage. And it's just going backwards and forwards, holding it at an angle over the repair to remove any excess glue. So now I will leave that and leave it for the full setting time, the full curing time, and then I will go back and just see whether it needs another little bit of a wipe over or even super, super fine sandpaper. That will help. If any of the glue is there that looks shiny, that super fine sandpaper will remove some of that shine and give that sort of a matte finish back to the surface. And that's important. When you look at what you're repairing, if it's got a matte surface, you've got to ensure that it's got a matte surface where you've repaired it. If it's a gloss finish, you've got to make sure it's a gloss finish where you've repaired it. But he's all done. And in 8 hours' time, he'll be ready to go home. I won't pack him in his box yet. I want to make sure that that wrist is totally solid and set. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget, you can get in touch if there's something you'd like us to show you. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.